Hello, I'm Alexandra. I've lived in New York City for 3 years now, and it's finally time to move. This is my first time moving within the city because I've only moved to this apartment that I'm currently living in and also between rooms. But now I'm moving and apartment hunting. Before we get onto the tours, here's some helpful tips for apartment hunting in New York City and what I wish I knew before I started. For those of you who want to move to New York City and haven't yet, I would start by asking myself some 3 priorities. Number 1, when is your move-in date or your ideal move-in date? If this is something that is more flexible for you, I would say that busy season is around spring and summer, and things slow down from October to winter. Busy season means that there will be more choices for the apartments that you're seeing, but also there's probably a price increase because of the time that you're renting. So if you're renting an apartment that starts in like June, for some reason it is more expensive than if you were to start your lease in like, let's say, February or January. Other main question is, what is your budget and where do you want to live? There is so much diversity in the areas of New York City, so these are important things to know. It's important to have a general budget and to stick with it, or else you'll probably be overpaying for an apartment that is really nice but maybe is way beyond your means. And it's also really important to know the general vibe of each area that you're going to move to. And the last question I would ask myself is, are you planning on having roommates, and how are you finding your roommates? If you already know your roommates and you're planning on moving with your friends, this is totally fine, and same goes if you're not planning on having roommates. I would say most people who move to NYC, they have roommates, just like I had a roommate, simply because it's so expensive to live here alone, so it's just not realistic to not have roommates. General tangent on finding roommates, I found all my roommates on Facebook, which can be a hit or miss, but I think I got really lucky. When I moved into my current apartment 3 years ago, I moved in with 2 girls that I met on Facebook, and I didn't meet them in person or see the apartment at all before I signed the lease and like moved in. I don't know if I would recommend that to people in general. I was pretty confident in that I knew that this listing was a gem and I had no regrets. I ended up living with one of those roommates for 3 years, and since then every single year the other roommate has been switched out, and every single one of my roommates have been lovely to live with in general. I never had any major horror stories. When screening roommates, I would prioritize lifestyles and values. Do they prefer to go out and party a lot versus staying in? The other main thing is that they have alignment for the kind of apartment that you're looking for. So for example, if having windows is super important for you, it's also important that they see that as something that's really valuable. Or for example, if they really value having laundry in building or in unit, then it's important that you also value it, so when you're in the process of apartment hunting, you guys don't really get into big conflicts. Anyway, once you know all these 3 things, then I would approach moving to New York City in a few ways. First, ideally, I would move to New York for at least a month to scope out potential areas that I could live in, because living in New York City is very different from visiting from New York City. Different areas really vary based on personal preferences and priorities, and it's really hard to tell when you're visiting. Although I know not everyone is lucky enough to live here for a month before they actually move into a new place, I think it would be really helpful just to have the peace of mind, and so you know you're making the right choices. If you're not able to do that, I would do a lot of research about like the general vibes of the area and what each area is known for. A general rule of thumb is that areas downtown are generally more expensive but more convenient, and they usually have a more vibrant nightlife, which is convenient if that's something that you value, but it also means that it generally is louder. It's also typically harder to get better amenities in spaces downtown just because there's higher demand and you would have to be paying a premium cost. There are also areas in New York City that are a little bit more homey. So for example, either the Upper West Side or the Upper East Side. Uptown is a little bit more homey. Some areas in downtown Brooklyn / near downtown Brooklyn are also a bit more homey. I personally live on the Upper West Side, and I love the Upper West Side because I am a cozy person at the end of the day. So I really value living here. As a personal recommendation, living close to a train station makes a huge difference, and if you live near an express stop, that is like a gold star. The second thing that I would note when I'm apartment hunting is to be really clear on your main priorities, and also be clear on the things that you're flexible on. If you have set parameters, your search will be significantly easier, but I would also be willing to look a little bit outside of those parameters while still being within range for some things. The reality is that unless you're willing to pay like $10,000 for a 1-bedroom, you likely will not get every single thing that you want. So be prepared to make compromises or just generally like be realistic. Unfortunately, you will probably not find an apartment that is within reasonable price range that also has all of these wonderful amenities in a beautiful location really close to transit unless it's a scam. Be prepared to part with some of those amenities. Lastly, in the preparation process, make sure you have everything in your application ready to go before you start apartment hunting. Which leads to, what do you need in your application? Apartments move very fast, so this is really important to have everything ready before you do your search. In the actual application, you'll need recent tax reports, and a requirement in New York is that you need to make at least 40 times of 1 month's rent. So for example, if the rent is $1,000, you need to make at least $40,000 in order to just qualify. And if you don't make that much, / you don't have a full-time job, especially if you're a student like me, you can get a guarantor, or you just need to get a guarantor. Your guarantor needs to make 80 times the amount of rent per month. So if your apartment is $1,000, your guarantor needs to make at least $80,000 per year. This can be a little complicated because technically your guarantor is supposed to make 80 times the entire rent. So let's say if you're living with 2 roommates and everyone is paying $1,000 for rent, your guarantor needs to make 80 times $3,000. Although that's a lot of money. It can really depend on the listing. So make sure to ask the listing agent about these questions when you're applying if you have a guarantor. There's also third-party guarantor apps where you can have a third-party company act as your guarantor as long as you pay a fee. The fee is usually kind of pricey in that it's equivalent to approximately 1 month's rent. So that can add up, but it means that you will at least live in your apartment. And also if you use third-party guarantors, you need to renew and pay this fee every single year. Also, there are some listings that don't accept guarantors, although in my case, every single listing that I've seen, they accept guarantors, although it's something that I make sure to ask when I am in the process of looking. Other things you'll need: past 2 pay stubs, at least 2 recent bank statements, any proof of savings, letter of employment or letter of acceptance from your school, or a CPA letter if you're self-employed, and lastly, a tenant rec letter. Moving on to the finances. How much money should I have saved before I start even considering moving? You should have at least 3 to 4 times a month's rent saved before you start looking, because you'll need to pay for a 1-month security deposit, your first month's rent, and most likely a broker fee. What is a broker fee? A broker or a real estate agent is the person who is listing the property and doing all these tours. Sometimes the building or the landlord will pay the broker for this fee, but oftentimes it is handled by the new tenant because demand is high and people are willing to do anything to live in an apartment in New York City. And then a broker's fee is anywhere from 1 month's rent to 15% of the entire year, which is closer to like 1 to 2 months rent. There's also some additional fees sometimes. There's always an application fee, which is usually around $20. And sometimes there are condo fees or co-op fees, in which case you have to go through another application process, and that can cost another like $1,000 or more. And then lastly, there are moving fees, because it costs money to move your stuff unless you're somehow planning on doing it yourself. In total, that would be around 3 to 4 months rent. Now, when should I start looking for an apartment? I would recommend 1 to 2 months before you want to move. If you start looking 2 months before, you probably won't be getting that apartment that you see, so don't get too attached because housing moves fast. Most people in the city look around 1 month before their intended move-in date. I like to look earlier just to see like what the market's like, to see like what's out there and what's available. Lastly, how do you find an apartment? Street Easy is the most popular website that people use. I found this apartment on Street Easy. I found a lot of apartments on Street Easy. And then some other sites that you can look on are Zillow, apartments.com, and Craigslist. I've actually heard of people who use Craigslist for finding a place successfully. Would I recommend? I don't know. Err with caution, but you might find a gem. And if you already live in New York City, here's some advice for moving within the city, aka things that I wish I knew when I started this apartment hunt. So because I started my apartment hunting early, there were some listings that I liked and some brokers that I met who I enjoyed like talking with. And so I reached out to them personally after I toured the apartment and was like, if you see any other listings, please send them my way. And so I was able to see a few apartments or even like get videos or listing information about a few apartments before they went up because I had that personal connection with a broker. I would also walk around the area that you want to move to and see if there are any buildings that you like. So for example, there's a building that I liked in the area that I wanted to move in. So I literally just walked in, talked to the security guard and was like, hey, like I'm planning on moving. Can I get any information about potential listings that might come up in the next few months? And that could lead to something, although in my case, it led to nothing, but that's fine. And along those lines, if you're moving to a new area, I would walk around that area at different times of day because I do think that the vibes really change depending on the time of day. So like when there's like heavy foot traffic or if there's certain streets that are busier than others, like I think that's important to be aware about, especially when it comes to like noise level and convenience and safety. And then lastly, before you actually sign your apartment, definitely check the 311 NYC site to see if there are any past reports on housing related issues. So if you go on this website, you can look up like if past tenants had reported mice issues, a rodent infestation, or like severe issues in the building. That's all publicly listed on here. And if you're planning or thinking about moving into a condo building or an apartment complex, I would definitely look up the Google reviews to see what people are saying. It's possible that like a nicer building looks really nice on the outside and when you visit everyone's super friendly, but then all the reviews are people being like management super unprofessional, it's like so unresponsive, it's like terrible living experience. Check those reviews. And lastly, obviously I would apply to an apartment even if I'm just considering, just because I know the application fee is only $20 and I'd rather risk losing the $20 than losing the apartment because of my indecision. So I would ask to see an apartment again after I get approved before actually signing to make sure that yes, this is somewhere that I want to live and this is as nice as I thought it was. Finally, onto the tours. Almost. Before we get into it, let's quickly go over what I'm looking for in an apartment. I am looking for a 1 bed or 2 bed and 1 bath under $4,000, ideally closer to $3,500 to $3,800, ideally in the Upper West Side. I want it to be close to transit, which thankfully on the Upper West, most places are close to transit. Must have ample sunlight. I do not want to face a brick wall. Would love to have a dishwasher. Would also love to have laundry in unit, but laundry in building is okay too. No laundry is also acceptable too. And last thing, there has to be like a general vibe check. Like I want to feel like I could be happy living in this place, which is a very specific thing that I don't know how to describe, but is really the thing that is the most important. So first up, we have this 1 bedroom, 1 bath on the Upper West Side. It's $3,750 plus a broker's fee. The broker's fee is equivalent to 1 month's rent. It has in-unit washer dryer and a dishwasher and an elevator. I was fully okay with moving into a walk-up. I currently live in a walk-up and I can happily share that now that I'm moving out. There's also a gym and a package room, live-in super, a bike room, and also laundry in building, which is confusing because it has in-unit laundry. So it has all these like wonderful amenities. We're starting off strong within the range of our price. Some general pros is that it is a great location, great amenities that are honestly insane, and also the space is huge. Like the living room was huge and the bedroom was also pretty big. Like I wouldn't say the bedroom was huge, but definitely big. Like I would say even bigger than my current room, which is pretty big. Cons is that there's not enough sunlight. It's pretty dark. Granted, I also went at around like sunset, but it was like pitch dark and I looked outside the windows and it was basically facing a brick wall. That was not ideal. And also what wasn't ideal was that the latest was an October 1st move-in because this was the first apartment that I looked at, which would mean that I have to pay 2 months of rent, meaning I have to pay my current place's rent as well as the new place's rent. So 2 months worth of rent in 1 month. The next place that I looked at was a 1-bedroom, 1-bath for $4,000 with no fee. It also had in-unit washer dryer and a dishwasher. It was in a walk-up on the 2nd floor, so not too bad. And it was really nice and really new. It had some great amenities. Everything was freshly renovated, like the bathroom and the kitchen and just the whole space in general. It's super close to the train, like literally you can see the train from the apartment window, and there's no broker's fee. However, it was definitely on the edge of my budget at $4,000. The space was really small. The living room was really small. The bedroom was also really small. Like everything was just really small. There was not a lot of sunlight. There was only really sunlight coming from one of the rooms, which I think was the bedroom, and then the living room and the bathroom all faced like the brick wall facing each other. And if you look down the brick wall, it's like trash, like the heating system. The vibes, I don't want to, yeah, I did not like that. The living room was also not separate from the kitchen, which I think is very common. It was just too small for me to be like, oh yeah, it's okay that like the living room and the kitchen are all in like one space. And so it was really hard to feel like there was separation. The last thing is that it's on a busy street, and so it's super loud outside. It's gonna be so loud, like so loud. I really felt like you're paying a really big premium for these nice amenities and you're compromising a lot on like some other things. So yeah, pass. The next place that I looked at was also 1-bedroom, 1-bath on the Upper West Side. It was $4,000 plus a 15% broker fee. So definitely outside of our budget, but I was like, you know what? I'll just look because it doesn't hurt to take a look. This was a co-op, so it's in a brownstone. It was in the 80s, which is a really nice and vibrant area. There was a dishwasher as well as laundry in building, and it was on the 3rd floor of a walk-up. Some pros is that it was a very charming space. There was a lot of high ceilings. There was this nice brick exposure, really like cute, classic Upper West Side brownstone vibes. There was like a decent amount of light, but I will say that these windows were north facing, which is fine. My current place is north facing, but I feel like, I don't know, it just didn't feel as bright. As I mentioned earlier, the price is definitely really high because it is $4,000 plus a 15% broker's fee, which is too much. Plus, because it's a brownstone, it also had a co-op fee, which was like, I think $800 to apply. The other thing was that the dishwasher was a bit small, and also there weren't very many laundry units. I think there were only 2 laundry units in the building, and so I feel like if I wanted to do laundry in the building, it would probably be like often taken, or I would have to like coordinate and go at like a very uncommon time. And the last thing is that, I don't know, it just didn't feel like very clean. I wouldn't be surprised if I found a rat or a mouse in my apartment at some point when I live here, just because it just doesn't feel very clean. But anyway, main thing, too expensive. The next place that I looked at was a 1-bedroom, 1-bath for $3,300 with a broker's fee. Was not really sure how much the broker's fee was because I forgot to ask, but I would assume probably 1 month's rent or 15%. It had a dishwasher and it was on a walk-up. It was either the 2nd or 3rd floor because the walk-up was not that bad at all. However, going into it, the stairs were like really creaky. The pros were that there's so much sunlight in this unit. These are south-facing windows, and they had like light like basically all around the entire living room, which is really nice. There was also like a decent amount of space in both the living room and the bedroom. The bedroom was much darker because it was facing an alleyway with like brick walls, and the price was also really good. It was $3,300, which is on the lower end of what I was looking at. The cons were that like when I entered, it looked a little sus. It kind of felt like anyone could just walk into the building, and as someone who had like package issues, that's something that concerns me because I feel like someone would be able to like come in and steal packages pretty easily. It's also a very common problem in New York City. The main thing was that as I was walking around, I noticed that the floors were slanted, like parts of it would like cave in, and I felt that as I was walking up the stairs because the stairs were like a little slanted, which kind of means that this is a really old building. I feel like when they built it, was not like well maintained because of the way the floors are literally caving in. And also when I opened the closet door, I noticed that there was a roach. Maybe it could be just like a one-off roach, but it could also mean that there is like a roach infestation. In general, not a great sign, not something that I would want to live with. And lastly, as just a side note, I did not like the bathroom. It was like quite small and the vibes weren't great. I thought I found a gem because this is a 1-bedroom, 1-bath on the Upper West Side. All these places are on the Upper West Side for $3,000 with no fee, rent controlled apartment. The photos looked really promising. However, they looked nothing like the photos. The main thing going for this was that it's rent stabilized and the price is insane. Had a dishwasher, a laundry in unit. The laundry in unit that it had was like a 2-in-1, so it's like a washer and a dryer. Not a big fan of the 2-in-1 laundry in units because I feel like it doesn't effectively wash or dry, and it also takes forever to do either, but I'll take that over nothing. And then lastly, it was on the 5th floor of a walk-up, which is normally like not the end of the world. However, I was like, you know, it's fine. I currently live on the 5th floor of a walk-up. I don't really want to keep living on the 5th floor of a walk-up, but if the place was great, then sure. The main thing was that it looked nothing like the apartment, and I also had a really bad experience with the agent. Basically, he was like, what time works for you? And I said, I can come at this time. He texted me saying that he was going to be 30 minutes late. He sent me to go get the key at a lockbox, which was like 5 minutes away, and it was raining each way. Really not a great experience. And then I kind of like went into the unit by myself, like really confused because I was like, I don't even know where this is, like whatever. I just could not see myself living there at all, despite the price. I just did not like it. The last place that is on this list is also a 1-bedroom, 1-bath. It was $3,695, and there was a 15% broker's fee. It had a dishwasher, laundry in building, and an elevator. Literally 20 people showed up to this open house because it was an open house, which was insane. And then we had to like go in batches. What I really liked about this place is that it's a great location. It's super close to the train station and it's really convenient. It's right off of the 72nd Street stop, so it's like an express stop. I really like that area of the Upper West. Like the 70s is just so nice. Like there's like so many great places to eat. It feels like quintessential Upper West. It also had a lot of things that I was looking for in terms of a dishwasher, laundry, sunlight, and overall it had like a very large space. Like the living room was pretty big, the bedroom's pretty big, the kitchen was a little bit small but not the end of the world, and the bathroom was like normal, decent sized. However, I noticed that it was super loud because it's on a busy street, so it's kind of like, oh, because you live in a convenient spot like on a busy street, you get the con that it's very loud. I noticed that the living room was quite dark. The window in the living room like faced a brick wall, but the bedroom was really, really bright. At the end of the day, I don't think there was anything like really wrong, but I just didn't love it. Okay, now you're probably like, you looked at a bunch of places and you didn't like any of them. Yes, we can't be picky in this housing market, but I have to really think for myself like, hey, I'm gonna be living here for the next year at least. So where did I move? I am not going to dox myself and reveal actually where I ended up moving, but I'm really excited and you'll be able to see snippets of it soon because obviously I'll be sharing the space that I'm living in and all that other stuff. So yeah, I'm really, really excited because the application process was really long and I finally got approved and everything's all good and my move date is scheduled. So it's really, really happening and I'm in the process of packing. So I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you found this entertaining and helpful, and I will see you next time. Bye.